It was just another scorching afternoon when Jake Carter, a blue-collar plumber from a small town in Ohio, wiped the sweat off his brow and slid into his aging pickup. He was heading home after a long day of fixing burst pipes and faulty heaters when his phone buzzed. A message from his church group popped up: urgent, elderly woman needs help with her water tank. No running water for 3 days. He sighed. He was tired. Hungry. But something tugged at him. He turned the key and steered toward the outskirts of town. The address led him to a crumbling one-story home with chipped paint and a tiny overgrown yard. He knocked, and the door creaked open slowly. A frail, silver-haired woman peeked through, her eyes tired yet kind. "Mrs. Duvall?" Jake asked gently. She nodded. "I didn't want to bother anyone, but I can't afford a plumber, and I haven't had water for days." Jake smiled warmly. "You've got one now. Let me take a look." Inside, the home was modest but meticulously clean. Jake climbed up to the attic where the old water tank groaned and leaked. As he worked, tightening valves, replacing corroded parts, he noticed framed photos stacked in the corner, dusty and nearly forgotten. One caught his eye, a young man in a military uniform standing beside a decorated general. Jake climbed down after finishing the job and asked, pointing to the photo, "That your son?" Mrs. Duvall hesitated. A shadow crossed her face. "He was, yes. David. He died in combat over 20 years ago. Or at least, that's what I was told." Jake blinked. "You said, was?" She sighed. "They never found the body. Just a note. I always felt something wasn't right." Jake couldn't explain it, but something about her story gnawed at him. Maybe it was her loneliness. Or maybe it was the way she spoke, not with closure, but with lingering hope. Days passed, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling. One evening, he found himself digging online, searching for military records. He wasn't a tech whiz, but he knew someone who was, his old army buddy Marcus, now working in Veterans Affairs. Jake called him up, shared Mrs. Duvall's story, and asked for a favor. Marcus hesitated but agreed. A week later, Jake's phone rang. Marcus was breathless. "Jake, you're not gonna believe this. David Duvall isn't dead." Jake froze. "What do you mean?" "He was captured." "Pow." "Kept off the radar for diplomatic reasons. He was released years ago, but he disappeared. He has PTSD, lives off-grid near the Canadian border. But he's alive." Jake's heart pounded. His mother's been waiting, for decades. That weekend, Jake made the long drive north with Marcus. They followed every lead, knocked on trailer doors, asked local veterans. On the third day, in a tiny, wooded cabin outside Thunder Bay, they found him. A weathered man with hollow eyes opened the door. It was him. David Duvall. At first, he was guarded. But when Jake showed him a photo of his mother, older now, but unmistakably her, David broke. He hadn't believed she could still be alive. He had assumed she moved on, or passed away. Jake placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's been waiting for you. Every single day." 2 weeks later, Jake stood on the Duvall front porch again, but this time, he wasn't alone. When Mrs. Duvall opened the door and saw her son, tears streaked down his face, hands trembling, she gasped. And then, she collapsed into his arms. It was a moment so raw, so powerful, that even Jake, the stoic plumber, turned away to wipe his eyes. In the weeks that followed, David stayed. With counseling, community support, and his mother's love, he slowly began to heal. Jake dropped by often, always greeted with hugs and warm tea. And one day, David said something that stayed with Jake forever. "If you hadn't fixed that water tank, I'd still be lost." Jake smiled. Nah. Just doing my job. But deep down, he knew, it was never just a job. It was humanity. One act of kindness that rippled through time and mended a broken life. Because sometimes, fixing a water tank can fix a whole world.